Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. I am Wafa Shafi, and I will be moderating this webinar about conflict resolution in the workplace. Let me introduce our presenters and their respective topics. Rita Ladel will give us the definition of conflict resolution.
Hello, everyone. Happy to see you here.
Badr Haji will show us what can create conflict in the workplace.
Hello everyone. I'll be taking care of the causes of conflict in this webinar. So stay tuned.
Thank you. Othman Berrada, who will explain the 5C's approach in conflicts solution.
Hi everyone, I'll be pleased to explain these techniques. All with us. Thank you for attending.
And lastly, Usama Bouijanai will demonstrate some scenarios and their solutions.
Hi audience, wait for us at the end for Immaculate's acting skills.
Thank you. We'd love to hear from you at the end, so feel free to comment and ask questions throughout. Now I will give the floor to Rita, who will give us the definition of conflict resolution.
So, hello, everyone. Today we're talking about conflict resolution. So, I'm going to start by talking what do we mean by conflict resolution. So, according to Harvard Law School, conflict resolution is the process of peacefully resolving a conflict between two or more parties. There may be several different sorts of conflict at work. Workplace conflicts can arise between coworkers, managers and employees, or service providers and their clients and consumers. Conflicts can also arise between departments or groups, such as between management and the workforce. For a wide variety of professions across numerous industries, conflict resolution skills are necessary. This is because disagreement tends to lower productivity, create a challenging work environment, and result in unwelcome personal turnover and decreased morale. In order to achieve a successful conflict resolution, there are a few things that can be done. First of all, if you have a conflict with another person, you should start by acknowledging that there is an issue. Also, you must be willing to that both party discuss the problem and find the solution. Another thing that can be done is an attempt to comprehend the viewpoints and issues of the opposing person or organization. Also, you should also identify the causes of these conflict situations. If all of this doesn't happen, disciplining or letting go of employees who refuse to cooperate in conflict resolution can be done. Because this is very serious. If two people cannot work hard enough to stay professional and to have discussions and acknowledge that there is an issue, both people can't work in the same environment. To have a more concrete idea of what conflict resolution really means, let me give you some example from the workplace. For example, you're working somewhere and you are a manager. You should be promoting empathy by asking opposing employees to explain how they might feel under tense circumstances in order to avoid any conflicts. Also, if you have a competitor, someone that you see as a competitor, you should approach them and express your desire to find a method to coexist more harmoniously. Finally, accountability is established by a manager who notes conflict started action on a worker's performance review. This is very important because it can tend it can be very bad to have very bad professional reviews for other job that you might seek in the future and for promotion that you might want to have in the future. So now I'll be giving the floor to my other teammate to explain more and to give you more in-depth solutions and etc. for these subjects.
Thank you, Rita. For those of you just joining us, welcome. We have just finished defining conflict resolution, which is the process of peacefully resolving conflicts between two or more parties. Now we will move on to what can create conflict in the workplace with Badr.
Hello everyone. As my teammate Wafat mentioned, today we're going to talk about conflict resolution, in particular, the causes of conflict in the workplace. Now, whether you have worked in an organization or you're going to work in an organization, conflicts are bound to happen. Let's face it, it is a way of life, but there's one thing in common in all conflict situations, and that's the human factor. Basically, you and your coworkers. So here's how it happens. Conflicts arise because there's a disagreement perhaps in a plan, ideas, execution, or miscommunication, perhaps. You see, it has to do with people. Conflicts often occur, in my opinion, based on the following reasons. Reason number one, which is personality clashes. People with opposite personalities often clash if they do not understand that those are just personalities and that it's not an intention to work against the other person, to appear rude, dominant, to appear stubborn, or even difficult. It's just that you work better in one way and the other person works better in another way. Now, the acronym OCEAN stands for openness, conscientiousness, extraversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. You see, there is no good or bad in these traits, but we all have varying levels. Some people have a high level of some of these traits, and others have a low level. So when that occurs, perhaps you might clash because you don't do things the same way. For example, one who has a high level of conscientiousness working with someone who has a low level of conscientiousness is very agreeable and open to great ideas. You see, it's so easy for those two to clash because the person on the high conscientious level loves details and has everything scheduled and planned, but the person you work with is open to changes and likes to do things on the fly. So you, as a high conscientious level, you would think that the other colleague is a scatterbrain, unserious, and even lacks focus. Whereas the one with low conscientious level would think that the other colleague is inflexible or difficult to work with. So this can be determined if one doesn't realize that these are just personality differences, and what would be the best thing is to optimize the level, meaning use your strengths to your advantage. Because mind you, it is so easy to fall into conflict with each other. Which brings me to my next point. Basically, ineffective or poor communication. This is so common. Basically, person A says something and person B hears another thing. It is so easy for that to happen when you're not specific with what you say, which is a cause for conflicts in a lot of organizations. So think about it. If you've been having a conflict, that is because of poor communication, maybe a lack of specificity or just a misunderstanding. The third cause of conflict happens a lot in teams, and that's when there is ambiguity and no clear-cut roles for team members. Basically, who's responsible for what? So you might find yourself in a team and you're all arguing on who should do what or how certain things should be done if the team leader doesn't assign specific roles or specific tasks to these specific individuals. It is so easy for the members of the team to clash because they're all arguing on the same thing and no one can take the lead because no one has responsibility. With that being said, if you're a team leader, make sure you give specific rules to specific individuals so that everyone knows what they're supposed to do and everyone knows who's in charge. Which leads me to the fourth thing. When you do not forget or forgive, or perhaps when you do not let go of things that have happened in the past, meaning you had a clash or a misunderstanding with a coworker 2 weeks ago, for instance, but you're still holding a grudge against your colleague or giving him or her attitude because of something that happened in the past. With that being said, if you do not let go of past incidents, it's going to affect your relationship. And this leads me to the last thing that may cause conflict in the workplace, and is in fact connected with my last point, which is not letting go, which is basically having emotional reactions. Have you ever been in a meeting and someone has an outburst over something they don't like, and or you're wondering is like, why are you blowing up over this? It's not even a big deal. Whereas the person looks at the group and feels like you don't understand. This has been happening over and over, and he keeps going on and on, basically having an emotional reaction. One thing should be said: when you react purely on emotions, you are most likely not getting across to the people you're relating with. Yes, I understand. Emotion has no playground. And yeah, debate and disagreement are the core of any true democracy. But sometimes we get angry. But when that happens, it is crucial to take a deep breath, to pause, and bring your executive parts of your brain into the situation. Now, every emotional reaction has to be balanced with logical reasoning, because you want to make sure that people understand exactly what you're offended about or upset about. So these are my causes of conflict, or the reasons that may cause conflict in the workplace. So I'll leave the floor to the next person.
Thank you, Badr. To recap, he stated that conflicts can be caused by several factors such as personality clashes, poor communication, emotional reactions, and how all of that relates to the OCEAN acronym. Um, I apologize about the technical issues. We will now be moving on to Othman with the 5 C's approach.
Hi again, everyone. So, as you know, we live in a world where everyone is unique. It is what makes our society so diverse and rich in culture. But differences can lead to conflicts when individuals with different perspectives can't reach an agreement. Since conflict at work is inevitable, it is best to be prepared so that we can handle ourselves when disputes arise. That's where we can refer to the 5 C's approach, which gives us the principal actions to follow while handling conflict. The 5 C's stand for careful listening, considerately looking at the situation, calmly discussing the conflicting perspectives, conscientiously looking at the facts, and cooperatively working together. So let's look first at careful listening. As every conflict has sides, it is primordial to listen closely to what each party is saying before deciding how to resolve the disagreement. Careful listening is the first key when handling conflict, as it allows to validate others and lets them know that they are being heard, regardless of whether you agree or not. To do so properly, we should let both sides present their ideas while making sure that one group doesn't interrupt the other. Reserve comments during that phase. This presentation of ideas isn't about establishing whose argument is better, but about carefully listening to each side. Perhaps these seemingly opposing ideas can be combined for a more effective outcome, but you and your team won't know it unless everyone learns to listen carefully to each other. At second, we have considerately looking at the situation. So, when conflicts arise, emotions and anxieties are heightened. To avoid worsening the situation, you have to make sure that your teams learn to understand each other, even when they don't agree. Part of being able to listen carefully is being able to understand and accept others' ideas. Remember that you are not always right, and that your ideas aren't necessarily the best. You should remind your team of this as you mediate the conflict. The third C in conflict resolution concerns calmly discussing the conflicting perspectives. How we respond to a conflict can intensify tension. Conflicts worsen when the arguing parties become emotional and the argument becomes personal. The best way to handle conflicts is to stay calm, because calmer minds produce clearer ideas. So try to keep yourself and your team calm, avoid showing signs that you agree with one group and not the other, and since all parties talk to each other in a relaxed and civil manner. Don't let emotions overwhelm the situation by making sure no one shouts, makes offensive comments, or blames. So next we have the fourth C. This one is for conscientiously looking at the facts. What I mean by that is that you must be sure that you have all the facts in hand before making any decisions to resolve a conflict. To do so, try to clarify the points first, to take into consideration each person's perspective. In case the conflict arises while the team is deciding how to solve a problem, try to identify what each team member perceives as the issue, because different perspectives on the same problem will lead everyone to consider different solutions. Therefore, you should let everyone present their ideas without an interruption, so that you can get all the relevant facts that are needed to make an informed decision. It's the same thing with careful listening and consideration. You have to make sure to listen to each person and consider the facts they present. Finally, the fifth C in conflict resolution stands for cooperatively working together. I would say that this one is the result of successfully combining the 4 other C's that I mentioned prior. Applying these guidelines will lead the team to focus on addressing the shared problem instead of attacking each other's personality. Letting everyone be a part of conflict resolution teaches your team how to handle conflicts for themselves. So the next time they find themselves disagreeing, they are less likely to need your intervention. If you and your team carefully listened, considerately looked at the facts, at the situation, calmly discussed perspectives, and conscientiously looked at the facts, you can all cooperate to resolve the conflict. So thank you all for listening, and I'll pass the floor to my teammate.
Thank you, Othman. In case you've missed a live and have just joined us, do not fret. A recorded version of this webinar will be uploaded later tonight. The last point on our list before we start answering questions will be conflict scenarios and their solutions with Usama and I.
Hi.
So a study found that unfortunately 85% of employees deal with conflicts in their working lives, and it's believed to cost American businesses $359 billion annually. You're costing 3 Bill Gates. We've already talked about conflict resolution and the different approaches that one could take in order to avoid those conflicts, but here are some examples to help illustrate what we mean by that. Now, ladies, gentlemen, and anyone in between, will present you a few conflict scenarios in the workplace. Now, keep in mind, those scenarios don't mean to mock any real matters. But yeah, pay attention to our immaculate acting skills.
So first, we'll start with a scenario regarding discrimination. Discrimination can happen either with disabilities or race or sex, etc. But now this scenario will be about gender. I'll start. Hey, lady, how dare you suggest what to do regarding my work? I am an independent man and you are a woman.
Sir, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say or do will be used against you in court. I am suing you, misogynist.
Now, the next scenario is regarding sexual harassment.
Hey, pretty boy.
Excuse me, madam. You don't have the right to catcall me. I didn't give you my consent to offend me with your flirtatious compliments.
Well, excuse you. Now, employees will feel more comfortable if it is clear that discrimination, sexual harassment, all of that stuff is not accepted in the workplace. A good manager should make the office a safe space. In the case of a discriminatory action, the person concerned should obviously speak up. And as a result, the manager should have a meeting with both parties and try to apply the methods we've seen earlier with our fellow presenters. The manager should thus sit them down, try to understand the situation, and take the right measures based on what happened. The next scenario we're gonna introduce is poor communication between two parties. For example, hey, did you send our supervisor an email?
I thought you were going to do that.
Well, you were wrong.
Now, to solve such problem, first of all, you need to communicate the problem between both parties. As stated in Dale Carnegie's book, How to Influence Friends and How to Win Friends and Influence People, you need to approach a person in a friendly way. Remember, a friendly way. You need to admit that you are wrong when you are wrong, and you need to try to see things from the other person's perspective. Now, if that doesn't work and if tensions grow, then you need to try to communicate with the problem with either your supervisor or directly the HR department. Now, aside from that, pronouncing a word as another word, like live or live, or using a word instead of another, like in or at, can lead to big issues in the workplace, especially when it comes to big organizations with hierarchies and long communication funnels. A single sentence can change from one person to another, and that would lead the final information to be that would lead the final receiver, which can be a 10th receiver, to receive an information that's extremely different or even opposite to the original information. So what you can do as a worker, as an employee, as a businessman, as a student, is formulate simple sentences with simple grammar and simple vocabulary, and try to send the information directly to the final receiver, or at least through the shortest path possible, maybe either through direct email. Thank you.
Next, the inability to work together because of different personalities or work styles. We all have different styles of learning and working. Some may procrastinate, others finish their work early and like to, for example, work alone. Some like to work in teams. We all are different human beings. We all do things differently, and it's normal and inevitable to work cohesively. Sorry, it's it's inevitable to when people clash, excuse me, because of those differences. So, unless both parties try to find some sort of compromise and decide to apply the methods we've seen before, like keep in mind the OCEAN acronym or the 5 C's, just try to resolve those conflicts and communicate, there is no way they'll work well together. So, people just have to keep in mind that communication, it's a huge part of working cohesively, and just try to find some sort of compromise in order to be able to work together as a team.
Thank you, Wafa. Now we'll move to the next case, which is tension between departments. Now, tension between departments is a very common issue. Throughout my experience in club management, either in high school or in college, there are always conflicts between departments, especially when it comes to students. Now, let's say you, the viewer, are the head of the financial department and you have some experience in marketing, and I am the head of the marketing and sales department, and I'm doing a really bad job. One day you came up to me and told me that I am not doing that good of a job and that I can just take one certain decision, this an action X, to achieve the certain number of clients that the company wants. As a result, I took that complaint as an insult to me as a person and to my work, and now we have a certain conflict. So the short-term solution is, again, to try to talk the misunderstanding out, as we have stated during the whole presentation, or as, again, Dan Carnegie stated in his book. Now, the long-term solution is for the departments to never invade each other's businesses. At the end of the day, each department has their own KPIs that they need to achieve by a certain date. And even if there's an action taken by a certain department that's affecting my work or my department's work, then what I can do is just communicate it with my supervisor, or if I am the head of that department, I can respectfully talk it out and communicate it to the head of the other department, or to the organization's board. So thank you. This is the end of our presentation. Now, as a conclusion or as a recap to everything that we have done, we first started by defining conflict resolution, which is the process of peacefully resolving a conflict between two or more parties. The second part was the causes of conflicts in the workplace. It was we first have personality clashes, and we have ineffective and poor communication, we have ambiguity and lack of clarity, we have not letting go of previous conflicts, and we have emotional reaction. And then we move to the 5 C's approach to resolve conflicts. The first C is careful listening. The second C is considerately looking at the situation. The third C is calmly discussing the conflicts and perspectives. The fourth C is conscientiously looking at the facts. And the fifth C is cooperatively working together. And then finally, We presented some conflict scenarios in the workplace, of course, using our surely professionally entertaining, immaculate acting skills and their solutions. Thank you so much. The presentation has been presented to you by Barada Atman, Bouij Usama, Shafiq Wafa, Haji Badr, and Ladil Ghita. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, please ask them right now, and we'll make sure to answer them in the next minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Osama. We actually got a few questions. Let's go. I will direct the first one to Rita. Is there a solution for every conflict that might arise in the workplace?
Thank you, Rahma, for this question. I believe that there are always solutions for conflicts, any conflicts, if the two parties are willing to find compromise and to talk about it. But in some scenarios, it goes just too far. So at the start of the conflicts, both people should stay professional and not go too far. So I think we can say that there are some issues that can't be really resolved at work, and that the human resource department should be involved, and even the manager, etc. So what I would say is that I recommend that if there is any conflict, that both parties should start thinking that they are in a professional setting, they should stay professional, they should start to communicate peacefully and try to find a solution so that things don't go too far. So thank you, Rahman. If you have any other question or want any follow-up on this, please let us know on the chat and we'll go back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There's a question directed towards Badr, and it says, "Great presentation, thank you." I have a question for Badr. You mentioned the causes of conflicts in the workplace, but what are some of the effects that conflicts has not only on employees, but also on the workplace?
Oh, hello. I'm just gonna unmute myself. That's actually a great question. What I think are the effects that conflicts have on employees and on the workplace itself. I think work disruption, lost productivity, failed projects, absenteeism, and turnover and termination are some of the most detrimental repercussions of workplace conflict. And I think that conflict in the workplace can be caused by emotional stress as much as be a result of it. So emotional stress can actually be a result and a cause at the same time. And when the productivity of coworkers decreases due to conflict, which is bound to happen, it also hurts the organization financially. Conflicts have a negative effect on almost all parties involved, and it is an internal case of self-sabotage in a way. And that's one of the main reasons human resources departments are lifesavers for the employees and the company's health. So, Sally, I hope I answered your question.
The next question we have is, sometimes communicating with someone isn't enough. What is the alternative in this case to resolve the conflict? Great question. Thank you for asking it. I'll take the reins on this one. Something you could easily do well, if communicating with someone doesn't work out by itself, is, as Badr said, take it up to HR. They're responsible for dealing with that type of thing, and they are trained for this. So if communication by itself does not work out, maybe go to HR or even the manager in that case to solve the conflict. Next question is also towards Badr. Another question I have for Badr. Can you please explain to me what neuroticism actually is?
Okay, so neuroticism is basically emotional stability, and it's one of the final. It's the final ocean trait, basically. It assesses a person's capacity for self-control over strong feelings like grief and worry. One who performs well in this area may be prone to these emotions and may also suffer from low self-esteem. So that's a basic definition of neuroticism. I hope I answered your question, Ines.
Thank you. Next question is directed towards Othman. What do you mean by conscientiously? Could you develop on that part?
So yes, conscientiously means meticulous and carefully. Like you have to feel a moral responsibility to do your work carefully and to be fair to others. It's very still policy in the workplace, and you must abide by that. When looking at the facts of the situation, the facts behind the conflict, you have to have every detail between your hands before making the judgments that you're supposed to place.
Thank you, Othman. I have another question by Harashi Adnan. Let's say I had a conflict with a coworker, for example, and it ended up with him getting physical. What is the procedure taking in this case? Knowing that if I fought him back, it is self-defense. Someone, would you like to take that?
Yes. Thank you. Okay. To answer your question, first of all, that's a pretty sticky situation. Either way, it's best always not to get into physical fights. It's best not to get into anything offensive in a way, either physical or verbal. But in this case, since the other person is the one that got physical, just try to defend but not hit them back. Because at the end of the day, this whole situation should go back to the either the HR department or the supervisor, so they can fix the situation between both of you. And most probably, the person who started the fight, especially physically, they will get certain punishments, maybe even fired. So yeah, either way, just try to stay away from physical fights or even verbal. Thank you. Hope that answered your question.
Perfect. Thank you. The last one we have at the moment is by Kenzie Rouvrant. Quick question. Do you have any examples or scenarios you could give for different work styles? So Usama and I can actually answer this one. Quick scenario about different work styles would be, for example, if I were to go, hey Usama, did you finish that essay, or did you finish your part on that essay we were going to work on?
I can answer, no, I didn't. I thought you were gonna do so.
And then I would be like, yes, but we did say that you were going to do that part or do it at that specific time. And you go,
this is an example of miscommunication. And also, I feel like people just want to see us act more. That, thank you for that. That's a compliment.
perhaps. But yeah, different work styles, or, well, one can just be procrastinating, the other would want to work fast. And people might just feel under pressure if the work is like kept until later and not done sooner. So yeah, I guess that hopefully answers the question. We can wait for a few more seconds in case someone else has another question.
Just wanted to point out that someone in the chat said that the Oscar goes to Wafa and Usama, which were very good at acting. Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you.
Whoever said that, thank you so much. I really take this very seriously, and I want to continue in my acting career.
And good luck to you, man.
Let me put some music so you guys don't get bored. I guess that's it. We don't seem to be getting any more questions. So thank you all for watching this stream and for participating. We do really appreciate it. So thank you guys. Bye bye. Have a nice evening.
Thank you for your time. Bye.
Take care.